Now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade JJ Williams, and today we're going to keep plowing through with the second installment of Wes Craven's other horror movie franchise. We're going to be discussing Scream 2, starring Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Jamie Kennedy, Liev Schreiber, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Laurie Metcalf, Jerry O'Connell, Timothy Olyphant, Rebecca Gayhart, Dwayne Martin, Jada Pinkett, Omar Epps, Joshua Jackson, Tori Spelling, Luke Wilson, and Heather Graham. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. As I said in the introduction, we're going to keep going on to the second installment of Wes Craven's other horror movie franchise. We're going to be talking about Scream 2 today as we move from Woodsboro to Windsor College. And as our movie opens, Windsor College seniors Maureen Evans and Phil Stevens attend a sneak preview of Stab, a film that is based on the events of the Woodsboro Massacre. At the screening, Phil is killed by the masked killer, now known as Ghostface. Ghostface goes and he sits beside Maureen and then fatally stabs her as well, which the audience mistakes for a publicity stunt, all the way up until Maureen falls dead. The news media, including local journalist Debbie Salt, begin to descend on Windsor College, where Sydney Prescott now studies alongside her best friend Hallie McDaniel, as well as her boyfriend Derek Feldman, fellow Woodsboro survivor Randy Meeks, and Derek's best friend Mickey Altieri. Two other Woodsboro survivors arrive on the scene: police officer Dewey Riley, in order to offer Sydney some protection, and reporter Gail Weathers to cover the case. Now, Gail and her new cameraman Joel Jones unsuccessfully try to stage a confrontation between Sydney and Cotton Weary, who is attempting to garner 15 minutes of fame from his exoneration for the rape and murder of Sydney's mother, Maureen Prescott. That evening, Sydney and Hallie attend a party at a sorority house. Meanwhile, at a nearby sorority house, Ghostface murders a student named Cece Cooper. After the partygoers leave, Ghostface enters the house and attacks Sydney. Ghostface injures Derek but flees when the police arrive. After realizing that Cece's real name is Casey, Gail theorizes that the new Ghostface is targeting students that have the same names as Woodsboro murder victims. Randy theorizes that the killer is someone that Sydney already knows and is basing the killings on a movie sequel. Ghostface later murders Randy in Joel's media van. Joel, scared that he'll be targeted next, decides to skip town. Dewey and Gail review the tape of Ghostface killing Randy, but the killer attacks them, stabbing Dewey. Two officers drive Sydney and Hallie to a local police station, but Ghostface murders them as well. In the ensuing struggle, Ghostface is knocked unconscious, but recovers and kills Hallie. Back on campus, Sydney finds Derek in the auditorium tied to a cross as a result of hazing from his fraternity brothers. Ghostface arrives, revealing himself to be none other than Mickey, who then shoots and murders Derek. Now, Mickey intends to kill Sydney and allow himself to be arrested so he can blame the violence in movies for the murders that he committed at his trial. It is then revealed that the second killer is Debbie Salt, who is actually Mrs. Loomis. Sydney is the one who's able to ID Mrs. Loomis since she dated Billy, her son. Then Mrs. Loomis betrays Mickey, shooting and injuring him. Before Mickey collapses, he reflexively shoots and injures Gail. Mrs. Loomis reveals that she is seeking revenge against Sydney for killing her son. But Sydney points out the hypocrisy of her motive, considering the fact that Mrs. Loomis abandoned her own son in the past, which caused him to turn into a serial killer. Sydney and Mrs. Loomis fight until Cotton intervenes. Mrs. Loomis then attempts to manipulate Cotton into murdering Sydney, but he chooses to shoot Mrs. Loomis in exchange for Sydney's participation in a Diane Sawyer interview so that Cotton can get his side of the story out to the public. Mickey suddenly resurfaces, but he is then promptly and viciously gunned down by Gail and Sydney. Sydney then shoots Mrs. Loomis in the head to ensure that she is dead as well. When the police arrive, Dewey is revealed to still be alive, and Gail climbs into the ambulance with him rather than taking the opportunity to report the story with the returned Joel, indicating the fact that she now cares more for Dewey than for the notoriety that she always sought. Sidney instructs the press to direct all questions to Cotton, awarding him with the fame that he has been chasing while removing the attention from herself as our movie comes to its close. Scream 2 is an outstanding sequel in my opinion, and there's a great scene in film class where Mickey is engaging with some of the other students, and it's where Joshua Jackson pops up. It's the only scene that he's in. They're going back and forth about how sequels are inferior to the predecessor. However, they're naming off sequels as Aliens, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and The Godfather 2, which they all deem to be superior to the originals. I messaged Jeff privately, and I hope to God that there is a deleted scene, an outtake, a blooper reel, something somewhere with Joshua Jackson's character saying D2 the Mighty Ducks, since he was Charlie Conway in the franchise. And Scream 2 came out a year after D3 was released. I just think that would be so hilarious for them to be sitting there discussing all these serious sequels and for him to spout out D2 the Mighty Ducks. Maybe it's just me. I think it would be a great meta moment. What do y'all think? Let me know. Over here if you're watching the premiere, down here if you're watching on demand. This movie also gave us the first taste of Stab, the movie within a movie based on the events of the original movie. That's where Heather Graham, Tori Spelling, and Luke Wilson all come into play as they play Casey Becker, Billy Loomis, and Sidney Prescott in Stab, respectively. All bit parts very minor, but entertaining to see the movie within a movie aspect being taken just as seriously as the events of the original movie. I thought that was cool. Jerry O'Connell is someone that I grew up on. Look up the old TV series from the late 80s. I want to say maybe even into the early 90s called My Secret Identity. Amazing science fiction show. That's where I discovered Jerry O'Connell. It was cool getting to see him in this. Me and Jeff discussed the performance that he gave of I Think I Love You in the top 10 musical moments from non-musical movies. I'll go ahead and I'll link that Dads up here. It was a great episode of Dads to cover. If you haven't seen us, go back and watch that. Like I said, that performance from Jerry O'Connell from this movie does show up on my list. You'll have to watch and check it out, though, to see where it comes. Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps in the very beginning, again, very much like Drew Barrymore in the original, using their name power, their star power to try and draw people in just to watch them get killed in the first 5 minutes. It is what it is, but it's a great marketing ploy. Timothy Olyphant, much like how I discussed Skeet Ulrich in the prior episode, to me, he kind of comes off as a Wish version of Christian Slater in this. Maybe it's just me. Let me know. Let's discuss. Down here if you're watching on demand, over here if you're watching the premiere live. All in all, though, I thought it was a great sequel. It sucked that Randy had to meet his demise, but once again, we got the rules of the sequel from him in a coffee shop with Dewey. Not as damaging to the genre, in my opinion, as the rules of the horror film from the original Scream. But alas, it was, it just seems like it's Wes Craven making fun of the genre that he popularized with The Nightmare on Elm Street. Granted, the genre had been going long before he dipped his toes in the water with Elm Street in '84. You figure he had Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, and Friday the 13th, all prior to that, as well as Carrie, as well as Psycho, etc. But it just seems like he came back to the franchise to make fun of the franchise and the genre. So take with it as it is. But I do enjoy the sequel, Scream 2. When it comes to my rating for Scream 2, I'm not going to put it as high, But 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a solid sequel. For as much trash as they talk in the movie about how sequels are inferior to the original, while I don't give it 4.5 like I gave the original, I don't feel like a half star off is that big of a knock. It's not like I took it down to 3 stars or 2 stars. What do you guys think of Scream 2? Let me know if you're watching the premiere. Thoughts and comments over here. If you're watching on demand later in the day, thoughts and comments down here. Let's discuss, let's conversate, let's chat, let's engage in the comments about this topic. And make sure you guys tune in tomorrow, right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. And we continue the saga. We're going to take a look at Scream 3, starring Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Parker Posey, Patrick Dempsey, Scott Foley, Jenny McCarthy, Liev Schreiber, Patrick Warburton, Jamie Kennedy, Heather Matarazzo, Jay Muse, and Kevin Smith. You're not going to want to miss out on that right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, right here on another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, Scream 3. To all my loyal fans and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that notification bell is turned on. That way you're alerted anytime a video drops right here on the channel. That way you're alerted anytime we go live right here on the channel, as is the case with Statboy Sports Bar, Open Mic Night, as well as our pay-per-view and PLE event coverage. Share this video with your family, friends, loved ones, co-workers, movie fanatics, cinephiles, fans of the horror genre, fans of Wes Craven, fans of Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Joshua Jackson, Jamie Kennedy, anybody that you can think of that would enjoy this content and this movie review. Share it with them. It's the only way we're going to boost up my visibility in YouTube algorithms so I can eventually get monetized, make some money on this endeavor. Thank you once again for joining me and tuning in here today. It means more to me than you'll ever know. And I will see you guys next time.